What's all this amount to? A portly man asked his doctor. You need some blood tests, a full metabolic panel. I'll be looking at your cholesterol too. Your chart, his doctor answered, perusing his patient's medical records as if it were a book the physician were trying to get the gist of before deciding whether or not to buy. Says your cholesterol was well over 200. That's quite bad, especially for a man in his early 50s. I really want to start you on a statin. Memory serves that you refuse every year, but I really urge you to start now. I can't force you, but damn right, it's my body. I'm not taking some wacky pills. Heard they can cause you memory problems when you're older. That's not true. Now, I'm going to send the lab over. It should be valid for up to 6 months, but I would really like you to go as soon as possible. Remember that the cholesterol test requires fasting. Nothing but water for 12 hours leading up to the blood draw. What happens if I don't? It'll screw up the results, and your cholesterol will be even higher, if that's possible. Oh yes, Doc. Sure, Doc. Whatever you say, Doc. Vincent Amatiros's workday following the physical was anything but sensational. Then again, hauling, picking up garbage, and managing through morning traffic was hardly glamorous. Pay was good, benefits nice. Unions had seen to that. Trash generally stunk as a rule of thumb, but after a month, the smells seemed to fade into the background. That certainly made the job easier. All the physical labor made Vincent think about his health and retirement someday, especially about living long enough to see the latter. 53 was not exactly the new 33, no matter what detox or fitness commercials told its gullible viewers. Vincent was not a young man anymore. His growing gut and ever-increasing loss of breath from everyday activities did not roll off his shoulders as much as he was convinced that his doctor believed it did. These worries depressed him, making him sigh as he hung his head. But right now, he was looking forward to going home and relaxing. Vincent just got off the 6 to 2 shift right as he punched out, smiling at the sound of his time card being cut. The middle-aged garbage man headed home in his little car with a duct tape patch window on one side and the other side chipped away at the top. Trudging his way home for the final 6-mile stretch from his work to his house was truly the last bit of his workday. Sometimes, Vincent had a fear of his gas tank running dry. He tended to get 1, at times 2, days off a week, and made sure to dedicate them to laundry, grocery shopping, and making sure his car had its fill. Lapses in his habitual behaviors were quite rare, yet it was still a passing thought on his commute home. Vincent pulled into his driveway at roughly 2:15. His house awaited him. Buying it at the right time for the right amount with the terms was the reason he had a home he could call his own. Slinging trash bags allowed enough money to pay the bills and stash a little on the side. Someday, he would take a nice little vacation, see the sights, pick up some souvenirs from a place to which he had never traveled and could not do justice with mere words. Someday, he always told himself. Locking his car, Vincent practically bounced his way up to the front door. He let himself in and headed directly to his bedroom. Down he went to his bed after plopping off his dirt-caked boots. Shutting his eyes, Vincent lost almost 2 hours to his dreams. When the garbage man awoke, the clock on the wall clicked away, making a claim of 4:30. He would have another 6 or 7 hours before he was off to bed again, and then work once again. An evening in the Amatiros household consisted of television and internet browsing. At some point during the intermediate, there would be dinner. To his doctor's chagrin, Vincent's supper samplings tended to be full of fat, considerable in its use of carbohydrates, and boasted almost non-existent nutritional value. There was no wonder that his belly was inching ever so slowly over his belt, ready to run amok. Vincent used to take a 20-minute stroll around the neighborhood right before dinner. Those evening excursions were becoming exceedingly rare. 2, maybe 3 of them in just as many months. Vincent was just too damn tired. Leisure time was important, and it was a hell of a lot easier to come by than exercise. Speaking of, Vincent did his minimal exercise by stretching after getting out of bed, before he shuffled down to the hall to go make dinner. Conspiracy theories were something of a hobby. Vincent followed almost every conspiracy theory that his hyped-up hands could grasp. Some theories fell by the wayside, amounting to nothing more than mere fads. Others enjoyed somewhat more popularity, but became regulated to nothing more than an obscure memory. Vincent's favorite conspiracy of all pertained to those bloodsuckers frequently known as vampires. Chiefly, that these undead ran blood banks. And hospitals too, those were important. When a patient felt ailed, vampires were always behind it. Nothing else could explain fatigue and fever, other than a visit from the children of the night. This is what really perturbed Vincent when his doctor ordered blood tests. He had had countless vials of blood drawn annually for over 2 decades. But such things as consistent proof were merely formalities that did not sway Vincent's opinion. How much blood does someone need to test for calcium or cholesterol? Why over half a vial? Wouldn't a few drops do? No. Vincent played on a loop inside his head. Most of it fed the blood bank's true higher-ups. Those damned, spawned by unholy means. Vincent never had problems with getting the test results back. There were 2 ideas that he suggested to explain this away. Lab results were faked. Numbers were cooked up, but rarely appeared to be too horrible or too perfect. On rare occasions they did, but only to throw people off by suggesting excellent or subpar health was possible, but not the norm. Idea 2, Vincent's preferred, was that they drank most, if not all, of the blood in each vial. Vincent's mental picture showed a human lab technician extracting the bare minimum needed for each test, then giving the rest to their vampiric bosses. Vincent reasoned that, this way, the vampire's thirst would not go too far and drink away all of the samples. Vincent wondered if vampires used their human employees as their own personal blood banks, in addition to their frequently incoming hors d'oeuvres a la vial. This was all par for the course for such an intricate scheme. Vampires' greatest weapon was the shadows, remaining there, lying in wait, and not just at night. Vincent bet that some of the vamps even had their own beds at the blood banks. At midnight, or perhaps more accurately, a midday snack before trotting back to their lovely coffins. They were probably beds, or more likely cots, but it made Vincent believe that all this stuff was romanticized in literature and for Hollywood's sake. Still, Vincent felt uneasy about the undead sampling his beloved blood. Jefferson Clinic's 26 locations served over half the population of Wyoming. Given the state's status as the most sparsely populated of all of those in the Union, the Equality State hardly seemed to live up to its name. Or at least, this is what Vincent believed. Listerville had a population landing somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 residents, quite respectable in a state with less people within its borders than San Francisco. Vincent knew that made the top 20 list for Wyoming cities, and he tried to have a good laugh at it as he drove dozens of miles to have his blood drawn. But having a laugh over irony tended to be difficult. Despite Listerville's considerable population by Wyoming standards, the nearest offices that drew blood both belonged to the family of Jefferson Clinics. According to a quick internet search, one was to the southeast, 51 miles away from home. The other went west for roughly 33 miles. And so westward, Vincent went. Groggy-eyed and dehydrated, Vincent trudged out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. Getting dressed and taking a piss were the only 2 things his time allotted. He parted from his home without performing any of the necessary pre-diurnal tasks. Shave, shit, shower, sit through breakfast, sip coffee. Vincent did not care for these tests, but if he decided to do them, they would be done correctly. Making a second trip out to have the test done over would be a waste of time and gas money on the precious few days that he had off. Despite his normal wake-up time being 5 o'clock, on days intended for time off, it somehow seemed especially hard to get up even an hour later. But Vincent simply powered on, keeping on schedule. Leave no later than 10 past 6, drive, hope for light traffic, and arrive when they open at 7. Putting on a pot of coffee certainly put a damper on being timely. But Vincent would fall asleep at the wheel without some caffeine. He used the 5 minutes the coffee maker took to turn beans into brew to bring along some backup snacks. 3 apples and 2 granola bars went into a freezer bag. 2 apples, maybe even 1, would do. But he was being extra sure. Fasting prevented him from eating them anytime soon. But he brought them along in case his hypoglycemia got out of hand. Those shakes sometimes rendered him immobile, if left unattended. In no time, Vincent heard the chime of those traditional beeps that spoke up as soon as the percolating simmered down. The coffee was ready. Unscrewing the cap off of a thermos that looked closer to a steel drum than a cup, Vincent steadily poured the fresh joe into the metal cylinder. Steam and heat hit his face as tiny bubbles splashed back. If he poured any faster, the garbage man was liable to get burned. Slow and steady won the race. After gingerly placing the pot back on the burner, Vincent set the thermos down on the counter gently and twisted the cap until it stayed snug. Ruffling around in his pocket, Vincent double-checked that his keys were still there. After achieving confirmation, he locked his front door and trotted on down to his little car. Starting up the engine, Vincent was pleased to find that it gave him no fuss. Interstate 80 was kind to the garbage man that morning. 20 feet from bumper to bumper was the closest any of the cars cruising the interstate that early morning had ever gotten to each other. Temperatures were pleasant, resting in the low 50s, and there was a cool wind blowing through the rolled-down window. The duct tape patchwork in the back window seemed to be holding up just fine despite the car's speed. Such things made Vincent smile as he took swallows from his thermos. Normally, he preferred coffee with cream, but this morning, he would be having it black. He did not want the clinic employees or his stupid doctor crying foul because a few drops of creamer infected his morning pick-me-up. This made him wonder if he was even allowed to have coffee while fasting. All of this seemed like nonsense to the garbage man. But he was not a doctor. Probably does, he snickered, justifying his decision to go sans cream and be mighty proud of himself that he did. Wrapped up in his own inclinations, Vincent barely made the turnoff from Interstate 80 in time. Swift thinking led him to turn into Rock Springs at just the right moment. Rock Springs was much bigger than Listerville, and if the sign welcoming people to the city's population claim was true, this city boasted 5 times Listerville's population. Vincent could definitely see why one of the Jefferson clinics took residency here. If anything, Vincent could not believe that there was not at least one more clinic here. Cheyenne had 3 of them listed on the company's website. Of course, the state's largest city was neither here nor there, and especially not the former. At this moment, Vincent only cared about getting things done, so he could at least enjoy some of his day off. You know blood banks are run by vampires, right? You know, vampires, the undead, Nosferatu? Vincent said, sweat swimming down his face and doing laps around his rather rotund neck. A woman with pale skin, red hair, and a long neck looked up from her magazine. She was reading about celebrities and their children, courtesy of the Jefferson clinics and the various periodicals that they provided for their otherwise bored clients. But it seemed as though she would not be reading about famous people and their alleged famous problems. No, oh no. She would be listening to some nutjob moron wax incessantly about how bloodsuckers did not just work as lawyers or for our insurance companies, but that they had to be literal bloodsuckers, and only children of the night could have come up with such a scheme. Sir, we are not a blood bank. This is a clinic, and the woman began, making no attempt to even look Vincent in the eyes. She was trying not to engage in conspiracy theories. Clinic, hospital, blood bank, whatever. Tomato, apple juice, I don't care. Just know that they run everything that has to do with blood. Think of the convenience. A phlebotomist then stepped through a small door at the other end of the room, calling out a patient's last name. The woman thanked God that it happened to be her last name. She plopped the magazine down, picked up her purse, and strutted over to the door like there had been stacks of cash just sitting on the other side. Vincent watched her leave. Slinking down into his chair, he did not know what to do with himself. He did not bother to make an appointment, figuring that no one else would either. At least 7 in the morning. Everyone else had. Some even for 7:30. And so the garbage man sat behind all of them, bored out of his mind while the clock ticked past 7:40. They had told him, in no uncertain terms, that he was the lowest priority with no appointment. Staff instructed him to write his name down, so he could at least be first out of those without appointments. "We are the no appointment crowd," Vincent kidded, "and I am their king." But that was 41 precious minutes ago, give or take. And the tedious boredom of the waiting room made them feel like 41 days. Getting hungry and going through caffeine withdrawals were certainly accomplices to this. To his side, tucked away near the leg of his chair, was his monstrous thermos of coffee. Vincent was getting ever more tempted to take a swig, or 7, as his energy threatened to disown him. But he was certain that they were absolute sticklers about anything that was not water. "Typical vamps," Vincent mumbled. "Jealous that they can't enjoy mortal pleasures. Having to be content with drinking blood. I mean, I get it. Unlike you, the taste of copper gets really old, really quick. But you still don't gotta deny a man a decent cup of..." "What's copper?" a voice to Vincent's right asked. Vincent looked at the source of the voice. A thin child, probably 9 or 10, with light skin, brown hair brushed down into a bowl cut, and freckles dotted along his cheeks like sprinkles, was looking at the garbage man. Everything in this place, supposedly run by bloodsuckers, made him jump. He suspended his fears for the moment. No way had a child been one of them. Even they would not sink that low. "Where's your mom, kid? Go be with her," Vincent instructed. "She just went in to have her blood done. I have to wait here." "So, what's copper?" "Oh, it's, metal. Like coins. Or wires in the walls of your house. But enough about that. If you've been listening so far, do you want to hear about who really runs this place?" Vincent became excited by the prospect that somebody might actually want to hear the truth. "Sure, I like stories," the boy replied, a bit chipper, and remaining totally honest. "Good. You might not believe it, but, kid, this place is run by the undead." "You mean zombies?" "What?" "No, the undead. Vampires." "Zombies are undead, and they run." "Well, sometimes." "Bloodsuckers, kid. Dracula, Nosferatu, the IRS." "Yeah, I get it. Children of the night." "See? You're smart. Smart kid you are. Anyway, they run all the blood banks and the hospitals and, well, clinics like this. Any place they can get their cold, clammy, undead hands on some of that precious blood." "What's clammy?" "Like slippery or damp." "Why would they do that, mister?" the boy wondered, genuinely stumped. "Because, kid, it gives them perfect cover. No having to, bite... drink people?" "Wow, kid, you're dark. Too many comic books for you, huh?" "Never enough," the boy chuckled. "Right answer. This way, they can hide in the shadows. It's perfect for them. They're so accustomed to doing that anyway," Vincent claimed, proud of his beliefs. "Theodore!" a familiar, disdainful voice called out. Here came Mom, the disbelieving plopper of magazines. She stormed angrily toward her son, even though her ire was directed at the psycho spouting conspiracy theories. Theodore's mother grabbed his hand so tightly that she almost left marks, but she was unconcerned about that at the moment. "Stop talking to my son, you weirdo, and leave us alone!" she roared, marching Theodore straight to the receptionist's window as though the child had done something wrong. Theodore stood while his mom demanded an employee. Her hollering attracted one, and the two talked. Then, Theodore was ordered to relay what the creep had said to the employee, and he did as such. His mother remained unsurprised. Furious, but unsurprised. She marched out the door of the clinic, holding her son like a rag doll. Theodore smiled at Vincent, and Vincent waved to the kid. He then sat back and relaxed. Other people in the waiting room stared for a moment before turning back to their iPhones and magazines and inner thoughts. Vincent knew he did not do anything wrong. He knew the truth. "Mr. Amatiras," an employee called out from behind the small door. Vincent sprung to his feet with the sort of grace he had not felt since high school. This meant he could finally get on with his day. Stop at a diner, have a nice fat breakfast. Maybe the biggest one they had. That would be a giant FU to his cholesterol test. And then maybe he would chug a gallon of coffee, cold or piping hot. He certainly felt tired enough. With that merry thought, Vincent hummed as he strolled through the small door and past the employee as she rolled her eyes. "So, you see, it's all a big scam. This place is horseshit, and you're all part of it," Vincent revealed. "Oh, wonderful. Fantastic. Awesome. Made my day," the phlebotomist replied, feeling her energy getting sapped from her as if Vincent were the actual vampire. "Glad to see you're thrilled," Vincent said sardonically, wanting to call her foul names, but deciding against being kicked out before all the blood samples could be taken. Her vampire overlords would have absolutely hated that, especially if it caught on. But he was already there, and so the blood test would be done. Oh, and she had a needle in his arm. Vincent, as a rule of thumb, did not fuck with people that had needles in him. There wasn't a running average on how often that came up, but still. "Yes, it will be over soon," the phlebotomist admitted, truthfully relieved that she only had 7 more hours of what she assumed could not be worse than this. The last vial of blood was collected. Vincent was instructed to hold some padding down at the crook of his elbow, which he did without fuss. Brown bandages were wrapped around his elbow in all different directions before the phlebotomist stopped. She heavily recommended that he wait in the lobby for at least 15 minutes before leaving. Vincent smiled, exclaimed, "Nope," to her face, and rushed right out of the room. He zoomed out the door, happy that he was able to make it out in less than an hour and a half, all without an appointment. Just as Vincent was making his exit, a receptionist pressed a familiar button, leaned down near it, and spoke softly. "We've got another one." Getting down to 2 cigarettes a day was something of which Vincent was very proud. He usually co-signed himself to smoking 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening. Today was going well again, but all that talk of conspiracies got him worked up. Maybe he would need 3 today, or 4. He also thought about the blood samples. An odd image was projected in the theater of his mind. Sitting at a rickety wooden table was an ancient vampire with gray skin, pointy ears, and veins running down the back of his ears all across his skull. His eyes were sliced and yellow like lemon wedges, with drool flung from his mouth. At first, it was murky, appearing to be blood, but it was indeed drool. The vampire held each little vial of Vincent's blood between its purple claws. Popping the cork off of one, he gobbled it down excitedly. Peering into the vial, the hideous vampire made sure that there was a drop or 2 left. Once he was satisfied that there was, he placed the vial back into its holder. Before he uncorked the second vial, he looked down. His preternatural eyes gazed back, glowing, coming closer to Vincent as if he were an unwelcome stowaway in the ship of his own mind. That ancient vampire was coming to get him. He would find out just where Vincent was hiding. Oh no. Even Vincent did not know where he was. "That's a filthy habit," a stranger said, smiling. He had pale skin that fell somewhere between chalk and cheese. His hair was slicked back. It appeared to be black, but may have been dark brown. The stranger's eyes were red, like cherries, or maybe more like blood. He was wearing a black suit with a red tie. There was neither hair nor a crumb on that suit. "Ah!" Vincent exclaimed, startled enough to drop his cigarette into a tiny puddle. "It's probably for the best," the stranger concluded, speaking peacefully. "Mind your own business. Who the hell are you, anyway?" "I am Mr. Commerce. I oversee this clinic and many others. But I'm here today for you. It seems as though you were less than content with our services for some reason. Perhaps they were subpar. And for that, I must take responsibility," Mr. Commerce said. "Okay, thanks, I guess. It wasn't that bad. I just think everything you do here is a scam. Not you specifically, just blood banks, and everywhere and every body that handles blood in general," Vincent emphasized, not wanting to offend the stranger. "I thank you for that. But I must also take responsibility for the treatment of others, and the treatment of them by others. Namely, you. You seem to have disturbed a woman with your rantings of blood banks being run by vampires, or bloodsuckers, as you define them more loosely. You also seem to have equated this peculiar theory upon our clinic by association, as we are not a blood bank. But yet, you persisted, and then you spread the word to her son. Whether or not you knew that was her son, I am not sure. But the others in the waiting room undoubtedly heard, and your proclamations of such partial truths will not be tolerated." "Get the fuck away from me, you weirdo, before I..." Vincent began, before being stunned into silence. "No, I can't. I must give credit where credit is due. You see, in your broad and lax terminology of our profession, you were actually right," Mr. Calmers responded, drool dropping from his mouth until it turned into green goop and melted through the concrete beneath his feet. Vincent took one look. His mind told him to scream, but his fear could not agree. His eyes widened, and he could only look up. Mr. Calmer's skin stretched, coming apart at some undefinable seams. As he grew, it looked more like an undersized shirt coming off ever so slowly. His face slipped slowly off his skull, looking more and more like a Halloween mask as it fell to the ground. No hair was attached to it, having evaporated as it touched his true skin. Red irises engorged his eyes as they themselves had become much larger. His real skin was neither chalk nor cheese, but rather yellowish green. Upon an initial glance, Mr. Calmer's teeth were sharp and yellow, few and far between. As the creature revealed more of his mouth, rows of teeth began to show, some crowning at the front of his mouth. All Vincent could do was squeal. Mr. Calmers had discarded all of his skin. His walking in human form dazzled Vincent the most, as Mr. Calmer's true form had no actual legs. An enormous creature with muscular arms and a tail. Slug came to Vincent's trembling mind. No, he told himself. Not quite. Vincent was rendered immobile. Speaking was not an option. running or calling for help were both off the menu. Mr. Commerce slithered up over Vincent, towering over him. This creature must have been 9 feet tall. He seized Vincent by the arms. Truthfully, Vincent was no more paralyzed by the creature than by his own fears. Rotating rows of fangs oscillated from within the creature's mouth. Attaching its mouth to its prey's chest, Vincent screamed and screamed in pain as dozens of teeth diced his flesh finely. All the anxiety in the world could not have stifled those screams. And, at last, the creature began to drink. It drank in greedy gulps, pacing itself only minimally. After only mere seconds of gut-wrenching shrieks, Vincent succumbed and died. His killer had taken almost a pint of blood every second or two, so Vincent's death was relatively quick. Mr. Commerce dropped Vincent's body. A tongue flowed out between the many fangs in Mr. Commerce's mouth, lapping up the streaks of blood around it. Other than its massive size, that tongue looked oddly human. Once done enjoying his meal, Mr. Commerce started to feel the urge to sneeze. At least, that was the equivalent feeling in human beings. He leaned over Vincent's body and shot fluid out through his nostrils. Vincent was fortunately no longer alive to feel the pain that would have been being melted alive by acid. His body boiled and bubbled, and let out generous heaps of steam into the morning sky. In less than a minute, Vincent's body was completely dissolved into a sludgy pile of waste. Some of it was brown and blue, and even a little bit of yellow too. But the overwhelming majority was red. Mr. Commerce used his arm to brush it into a nearby sewer drain. He was immune to his own acid, and inorganic things shared that same benefit. Most of Vincent's remains went down without a fight, but some of him clung stubbornly to the sewer gate. Mr. Commerce was not worried. By the time anyone noticed Vincent missing, the evidence would probably be gone. There was rain in the forecast. Lots of rain. Mr. Commerce loved the rain. He loved everything about it. But, for now, he had to hide and hope no one saw anything. Killing a witness would be awful, but an absolute necessity to remaining undetected. Concentrating, Mr. Commerce shrunk down considerably. He was now about 6 feet tall. His slimy green skin had dried and then hardened into human flesh. Pale skin was chosen over dark skin because it took less concentration to imitate the lack of melanin. As soon as all of his human flesh was done forming, his hair grew back into place within seconds. Unfortunately, generating clothing from nothing was beyond this alien's abilities. That left him naked, but he was not alarmed. This was not the first time, and would unlikely be the last. The back entrance to his clinics was always left unlocked during the day. Behind it was a stairwell that led directly to his office and a fresh change of clothing. That made him smile, always being able to rely on the little things in life. He tasted something with his human tongue, a smidgen of blood. Mr. Commerce perked up. There was that distinct, robust taste, and plenty of it. He knew it well. Americans had given it too well. Man, that cholesterol. It's tasty, but damn, don't let that heart pump. Mr. Commerce quipped, turning around to see that the concrete was stained brownish red all the way to the sewer drain. Oh yeah, can't wait till your blood samples come back my way. Yummy. Mr. Commerce commented, licking the last of Vincent's blood.